Welcome to the Growth Stack. I'm Sutopa Dwivedi, founder of ActNow360.ai, and this show is about the people and the decisions behind businesses that are built to last. So I started this podcast because I kept having the same realization that the best operators, they actually think like scientists. So today I'm talking to someone who has been engineering the infrastructure that businesses communicate on for over 2 decades. You will be astounded by his experience. That's Chico Perez, the CEO of BlankPoint Communications, a company that started by building phone systems for government entities and has now grown into a full service VoIP UCaaS. Chico, really glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Just to start off, I want to give people a sense of who you are. So if I ask one of your team members, what do you do all day? What answer do you think they're going to give me?
Let's say that I'm constantly innovating. I'm a thinker, so I'm always innovating new ideas and new ways to kind of break through in the telecommunications industry. So I'm always thinking, well, what about this? What about that? And so that's what I believe they would say.
Perfect. So you are a strategic thinker. That shows. I think now it's been 7 years that you started BlankPoint, right?
Correct.
So, and you spent significant amount of years in big enterprises like Cox Communications, AirTran, which is now Southwest Airlines. That's a very specific kind of career path. What do you think you were actually learning there during that time that you couldn't have learned anywhere else, and which helped you, bringing that expertise into your BlankPoint?
So that's a good question. It's kind of like if I went reverse engineered it, starting off in enterprise companies allowed me to be exposed to higher technology, right? Advanced technology that was coming out in the infant stages of voice over IP. And so that allowed me to be exposed to how things are done in a complex way, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And what I got from that, I think that was the key to my journey and leading to me where I'm at now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like comparing, a small business on how they do something in the telecommunications arena compared to someone like Ford or something as big, right? The more complex it becomes, the more innovating and strategic you become in thinking.
Right.
And so I think that's what got me into becoming that type of that thinker of being in the, telecommunications. And so I was exposed from voice over IP early when it first was just infant. And then I got to see the progression and transition into what it is now. And so it allowed me to, and it's a whole different way. Me learning what I learned from back then in the beginning to now, it allows me to look at problems or look at what we have now and transform it into something better or, more helpful in a way, I would say.
Yeah. No, that's just great. So you basically got all really important experience, but you decided to go on your own after that. Most people with a stable career inside big companies, usually they don't make that leap, right? They would think about it, but they won't really do it. So was there something which pushed you over the line, which triggered that move for you?
It did. So being in this field for so long, I've seen everything from A to Z, and not just in telecommunications, right? Not in the VoIP arena. I've seen it in the sales that integrates with the voice over IP, operations to even the executive C-suite. And so I have a very altruistic nature. And so, I think a lot of people, we all want to help some kind of way contribute to humanity or our community, right? And so me seeing everything that I've seen, the biggest thing was the relationship between a provider and the customer. And I've seen the biggest gap just widen as the years continued. And I felt that that was my main focal point on going to being in business or opening the business, was to focus on the customer, the end user, and helping them in every way, in a detailed way, to where they felt that between customer service and good quality of service is back like traditional days. And so that was my main push and fuel, was to hold the hand of a customer and they felt like they wasn't just a number, but the fact that the provider, like BlankPoint, cared for them and became family. Hence, we had this motto, your BlankPoint family. And so that allows them to feel like they do matter, which they do. And so it's just contributing back into the circle of our community. And so that was the main thing on going into business, was just helping the customer.
That's great, Chico. I think that's really commendable. And I was actually going through your white glove subscription part, and there it said you give your personal time with that. That's incredible that you're providing that service to your customers. How is that working for you?
It can be extensive. The passion of it. There's a saying that if you do what you love to do, you never have to work a day in your life. And so for me, I, for one, have a huge passion that's just, it's into this, working with the customer directly. And so at days, it does feel exhausting, and kind of pulling. However, on the better side of it is that it's what I get, what I feel from it, and what I get from it, knowing that I helped the next business, whether it's small to big, it's all the same to me. And so I do my best to keep a balance. I believe in balance. Balance is very, very big for me. There may be one moment in life where I'm just constantly busy because I'm dealing with a customer that just really is, wants their hand to be held, going through the transition, during a migration, or getting new services. But after that, I guess you would say the reward of it is you help another business, and it's not just a business. You help the individual who owns the business owner. I mean, it trickles down. It goes into even a spiritual sense. I'm constantly like trying to reach out to them in some kind of sense to just work with them and says, hey, if you need any help, let me know. I'm here. That's the whole point of BlankPoint. And so, I remind our customers that we're here. I know that that's going to, at some point, as we start to scale out, it's going to be very, very, very demanding and challenging. I can't be in multiple places at once, right? But quality is high demanding, right? And low in supply. So I think that's going to be the next thing trying to work on, is how to scale my time in a quality sense.
Absolutely. No, I think I'm already getting a sense of BlankPoint is what is it all about. But you did not start with SMBs. You went to the government entities. Now, that's a very specific and a very demanding place to be to begin with, right? Especially with all the regulations and with all compliance. And so why there? And why not straight to SMBs?
So that's actually a good question. We started in the public sector because it was a grander scale on things, right? For instance, if you're doing government schools, right, F1 funding schools or something like that, of course, a lot of it's going to be from RFPs that you gotta complete. But the scale of it, you touch more. It's a wider audience to where you get to touch and provide services. That's where I was thinking. I was thinking on a grand scale on how far can BlankPoint reach. And so I knew that when you're working with the government and whatever entity that it is, if there are multiple locations, or enterprise size locations, networks, and things like that allowed BlankPoint to touch wider. So that was the intention of starting off as far as working with the government.
And you're still working with government entities and SMBs?
Well, we slowed down in the public sector and kind of repivoted, and then our focus is now with SMBs, medium size and large businesses.
Okay. Now that's really interesting because it definitely added a lot of other kind of values to your business. Now you know about a lot of like compliance associated with government or public sector related. So you have that angle, you have the large enterprise angle, you have the public sector angle, and now you're trying to bring that into BlankPoint serving the SMBs. So to follow up, can you paint me a picture of BlankPoint today? Like what kind of businesses you work with? So basically, what is your ICP at this point? what does a typical engagement look like for you?
I love that question because it's always been one that always made me go really deep into the philosophy of BlankPoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
I look at right now, BlankPoint is in a position to be the hub for businesses and whatever it is in communications and telecommunications. And
Mm-hmm.
so we tend to like to touch everything in both fields, telecommunications and communications, between
Mm-hmm.
wiring, cybersecurity, data networking, you name it. That's kind of what we wanted to touch,
Mm-hmm.
from the beginning. Um, and so currently now we're in a place to offer a business, and we work with it. So one of the main questions people that what to ask is, who's your target audience?
Mm-hmm.
And I always found it very difficult and challenging to say specifically, this is my target audience, because being a phone provider, everybody needs phones. I mean,
Everybody.
everybody does, right?
I
It's
agree.
essential,
Yeah. Yep.
right? And most people don't even realize they need it until they don't have it. And so I would struggle to say, well, I want to do provide service to everybody. And you see some, whether it's an investor or whoever, well, yeah, that I hear that, but you got to have a target market, right? And it's always been difficult for me to say it because between a startup companies,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then I got to stay close to the philosophy and model that we believe in, right? So
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's starting a business that would love to have the appearance of an enterprise, you helping them, right? You help them, contribute to the ecosystem of business. And
Yep.
so between startup companies that just can take a toll-free number or a vanity number and put it into what they do,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, like 1-800-Flowers or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
then they can offer that front interface for the customers. It's great for them. And of course, voice over IP is all in volume. So you typically want to go with businesses that have multiple locations or multiple users and so forth. Again, the key to it is sticking to our motto. And so, in most businesses that are in help that don't have any kind of knowledge or information on what's best for them and best practice for them for their business,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's where we come in at. And we tend to not just say, hey, what do you want? We tell you based on what we're seeing that you're needing, right? It's like that quote from Steve Jobs. Hey, what is I hire people not for me to tell them what to do, but for them to tell me what I need to do. That's the how we work. That's the position of BlankPoint now, working with between small startup businesses,
Mm-hmm.
and then just large businesses that have just multiple locations and so forth.
So do you see now the market is more towards like UCaaS rather than the VoIP, or do you see a mix of both? What kind of portfolio do you usually see in your client engagement?
It's interesting because you have UCaaS, which is
Yeah.
very kind of straightforward. It goes
Mm-hmm.
off the internet. Everything
Yeah.
is integrated and
Yeah.
unified.
Mm-hmm.
You have voice over IP
Yeah.
takes a lot more components into the network, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
complete network in order to be considered a voice over IP. So, what I think is being forgotten is that UCaaS relies on VoIP network, right? You can
Right.
have a small business that says, okay, just give me a hosted PBX in the
Mm-hmm.
cloud and give me some phones. I got Comcast here is giving me,
Mm-hmm.
100 megs, and I think I should be good, right? And essentially it would, right?
Yeah.
But however, at the same time, that network, there's certain things in there in order to stabilize. You're going to have drop calls when it's dedicated, things like when it's a dedicated circuit, somebody's on Pandora or YouTube or it's faxing and everything is just dedicated. They
Yeah.
start to realize what's going on. And then,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you start to look at it, especially if an engineer is inclined to the true voice over IP nature, then they'll say, look, this is what you need to do. You need to segregate your data and your
Mm-hmm.
voice, and this is how it needs to be done. And at some point, they'll have some switches, a router with the right protocols. I think what I believe now is that the the industry is moving towards UCaaS
Mm-hmm.
because it's more convenient. The
Yeah.
world is obviously all about convenience.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
that I'm not for that. Give me the right way, give me the hard way,
Mhm.
because then that'd be the safer way, right? But um there you still have some companies, businesses that have people that staff that know what they're doing, the true voice over IP, and they'll have a
Mhm.
hybrid system. We can integrate things, and
Okay.
you want to take, there's a lot of factors into it, cost, and things of that, flexibility,
Yeah.
scalability, and things like that. So, um, if you have a hybrid, I think that that's right now would be ideal practice. I wouldn't say
Interesting.
best, but ideal practice to have a UCaaS, and then your network is set for, like, it's a true voice over IP network.
Yeah, I mean, if I understand, I mean, I could be like completely off here. I would believe that UCaaS actually has VoIP already integrated in it, right? I mean, this is like you're getting more, and not just the voice over internet protocol. So I was under the impression that UCaaS is going to be a little more, would have a little more complicated workflow and than VoIP, but you're saying it's actually the reverse, kind of? Okay, interesting.
Yes, so UCaaS is meant for, it's unified for all,
You're right.
amenities,
Mhm.
right? I would say, right? So, and when Voice IP started, you had a server for, chat, you had a server for this, yes, server, a voicemail server, you had a
Mhm.
server just for setting up the calls. There was something for, so your rack would be, it'd be
Right.
very extenuous, right?
Yeah.
Now, UCaaS, you can get a PBX online in the cloud that does
Mhm.
everything, voicemail, chat, is very ominous, does everything in one.
Yeah.
And you still have to set up protocols, which would be considered voice over IP, right?
Mhm.
Signaling, the ports. I mean, everything that you would certain protocols
Mhm.
that make it a true voice over IP environment. And so that's why I kind of there's a difference between having the UCAS, which is
Mhm.
somebody like, you got to still so someone who would use UCAS would go to like RingCentral, right? They have internet, got
Mhm.
phones, call
Mhm.
it a day. They have a UCAS system,
Mm.
but their environment, their network is not true voice over IP. And so that's because of the transition of where we're at now. It went from voice over IP to let's integrate everything together. And it makes it more scalable or flexible, and we can offer that instead of spending $100,000 on a true voice over IP network to
Mhm.
maintain it. I do believe it is kind of reverse engineered on that as far as the way it is. So yeah, it's a difference. I'm definitely on UCAS and then a
Yeah.
true voice over IP network.
Sure. And now that you've mentioned RingCentral and other providers who are also bringing in AI agentic capabilities and voice over transcription and other things, um, my follow-up question would be, of course, there are so many providers and so many platforms. If someone could Google business phone system, there would be like hundreds of results, right, coming up. So why blank point? Give me an honest answer to that question. But what do you truly believe in the philosophy of blank point now?
So what the reason why why someone would choose blank point
Mm-hmm.
is our main philosophy, our white glove service, right?
Mm.
Customers matter.
Yeah.
Excuse me, and they are forgotten along the line
Mm.
to doing business with, right? Our white glove service sets us apart from every other company. I mean,
Right.
we hold your hand, and if not, we have dedicated resources, that, a business, when they onboard, they have a dedicated engineer,
Mm-hmm.
account management, and so forth. So they have somebody at Dow in order for them to, address an issue, any kind of, future development requests, anything like that. They have somebody to reach out immediately and get a response. And so, are there other companies doing that? Yes. But for us, it's more of a relationship than
Mm-hmm.
just business. right? It's more personal for us. They say don't mix personal and business together, though. However, I beg to differ because even sales, it's not
Yeah.
just sales, it's a relationship. So, you know, with us, I mean, we know you by the first name. You know the people you're dealing with by the first name, you know, and is that scalable? Absolutely. I truly do believe there's a way to do everything, right? It just takes the quality time to create what needs to be done. So can every customer get that attention? Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's only one way to find out is in order to experience that. So, and all our customers have been always referred by word of mouth, which means it's good business. They experience it and hey, you know, we can reach out to somebody. We had issues. We never had no issues on porting. You know, they took care of us. They said they would reach out to the carrier, work with them, and you know, a lot of things that a lot of places where other companies put a block at or stop at, we pick up, and that's what sets us apart, right? Because then they know that we care, even if they call in irate, you know, upset. It we understand how the line works, right? Some things may drop, but having someone there for you like that, this is what crosses you over the line to the finish line to get to where you need to be. So that our personal hand-to-hand commitment is what sets us apart.
I think that personal attention is what some like most of the industry now they're missing that. So I think that's definitely adds a lot of value to BlankPoint here. Now, to say that, like, of course, you know, that it clearly shows that the philosophy of BlankPoint is about customer first and giving them all the attention. Now, I understand your communications, telecommunications, the infrastructure is very uh, heavy operating wise, right? It requires like a lot of manual efficiency. So how do you try to unify your system? How does a typical day for your team looks like in BlankPoint? It's a lot of customer facing, it's a lot of doing, you know, provisional workflows, operating, supporting tickets. How does it look usually?
So we're big on SOPs internally, right? There's a standard way of processing things that we do as soon as we get in. We're checking calls, the traffic. We're checking any alerts on monitoring alerts from phone registrations, make sure that there's no toll frauds and no third parties are trying to register. If they did, they're not making no toll fraud calls. I mean, we're checking all systems before set selling for the day. And then we're
Yeah,
proactive at things. So
sure.
this is a standard process that we do. Then, of course, between that and staying in the game, we know we're always constantly looking to see how to better our monitoring and things like that. So we can, you know, I guess better or provide I don't want to say, but a convenience for our customers. So we don't want to make it be a cookie cutter, and it's every customer is going to have a very unique onboarding experience. But there is also standard processes that do from from sales to handoff to operations, and
Sure.
then the onboarding of it. And so those are standard. However, how it's handled in the process of dealing with the customer, that's very
Yeah,
unique and
yeah.
very personal for between the engineer or whoever is working with the customer.
Sure.
So, we do between holding our processes, our standard processes to providing a very unique experience.
Yeah.
It's a thin line, and so we try to keep it balanced. So it's not like, oh, well, which they handle it the same way as before or anything else. We don't want to fall in that line.
Hmm. Okay. So I'll just zoom out for a second and uh, I know like your deep expertise is in the infrastructure, VoIP, SIP trunking, unified communications. But now AI is coming through at a speed. What used to take years is happening in months. Like what all you
Right.
were talking about, automation, like following SOPs. You integrate the Teams voice integration. I think you have that as part of a feature. But Microsoft Teams is already coming up with Copilot, which will, it will basically already do the transcription for you. It's doing more than that. So how do you see AI in this? Is this going to be an opportunity for you to actually add on more layers or will you take it as a threat? Or is it more complicated? I know it's a very open-ended question. Yeah.
So it is a very, very great question. And it's also, it can be complex, but I like simplicity. AI, I remember when AI started years ago. Um, And I've just never been a fan of AI. And as the years passed and I started, either you get right or you get left, you know? And so I didn't want to get left behind because of, the position of BlankPoint. You
Yeah.
got to stay ahead of the curve. And so started learning about AI. I had to create a philosophy with AI, between AI and BlankPoint. There's certain things that we would not do, but then we had to integrate AI in order to become more effective and efficient
Right.
in
Yeah.
telecommunications. And so I did find some ways, and I encouraged the team to learn AI on a coding base. So it become customizing. We're tailored to providing what the customer needs, and that's very unique. And so integrating AI has been a very, very challenging task, but it's been very fun at the same time. And trying to keep it at bay to where it's not taking completely over and just relying completely on AI. And it's the fact that we use it to a minimum as a tool and not letting it use us, to where we just don't need a human being or anything like that, right? It's an
Absolutely.
integration.
I was looking at your blog post about HIPAA compliant, phone services, which is definitely needed for all healthcare industries, right? I mean, that goes
Right.
beyond saying. So, yeah, I mean, there are like different levels of what AI can do.
I'm currently at the crossroads now to where I can never replace a human experience with AI, right?
Sure.
A human
Yes.
can provide the best human experience, obviously,
Absolutely.
to another human,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
I would never trade that off for many reasons, right? At the same time, in parallel, that I would integrate AI as a tool to advance the human experience.
What kind of AI tools are you using right now? So are you using like AI voice agents? Does it just handle inbound calls and, or they resolve your routine queries? How are you implementing AI in the current model?
Yeah. So right now we are utilizing AI in a sense on the back end infrastructure. So a lot of it is pulling, creating metrics. Um, it's kind of performance wise right now at the moment. We keep it way in the back, you know, um, and it kind of just helps with um automating type of things. So
Sure.
it's mainly used for performance reasons,
Right.
to help with routing efficiently, effectively, things like that, and away from the front end, as I mentioned. But
Yeah.
right now, it's kind of made for just prevention, and then of course reporting.
Okay. Um, so I was telling you about Copilot and all that with teams coming in, and as their capability grows, the platform will start to absorb more of what a provider like you would traditionally do. So if Microsoft came to you tomorrow and said, we want to partner more deeply, what would the ideal version of that relationship look like for your business?
Mm. Um, that's a great question. It'd be very interesting because it would depend on the minds in the room. So there has to be an alignment between myself,
Yeah.
BlankPoint as a whole, and Microsoft, and where we want to go to, right? And so in a perfect world, it would be a great relationship because that we have one thing in common, is that we're innovators. Microsoft likes to stay ahead and create, they like to innovate new technology, or integrate new technology that's came out with their service. And so with that type of, perspective, we both can work towards creating something to basically just push um, the industry into a whole nother level and create something new um, with telecommunications or voice over IP.
Mm-hmm.
And so the relationship would be between providing quality of service of VoIP
Mm-hmm.
on an AI scale.
So,
And I would say this, I would add this real quick that
sure.
there is a spirituality in business. It has to be, right? I believe that there is a spirituality in business, that what you
Absolutely.
believe and carry, that energy, that aura, it
Mm-hmm.
does play a role in that aura may not just be it. I mean, I know a lot of businesses now would choose a smaller provider rather than going somebody like AT&T because of the aura,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now,
Yeah.
there is a perspective. Well, the customer service is just not so great.
Mm,
However, it trickles down from the top to the bottom, right? The way
yeah.
that the owners work, believe, and carry themselves in business, it goes down. And so we're moving into a new age that we want to connect more. There needs to be more connection. And so
Right.
that right there, no matter how much technology you may have, it may not mean nothing to the end user that's looking for connection. Right.
Sure.
And that's the point, right? Like what I do is connection to connection, right? You want to connect calls, connect people to people. It's
Mm-hmm.
always about connection. And so
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to definitely throw that in there because um now that you have me thinking about if there was a relationship with, an enterprise company, like for instance, Microsoft, I think about it, well, I'm not gonna think about what do they have that I don't. It's what do I bring in
Mm-hmm.
that would just make the whole, collaboration worth it.
Yeah.
So, but yes.
That was a great point. I think that holds true for a lot of SMBs nowadays, right? People are moving their um, not buyers, but from large enterprises to SMBs because of that focus. You get that you will get personalized attention. So I'll shift my gears a little slightly now. So we have talked a lot about what's working, and so when you step back from the product and you think from, the clients, from the technology, and you look at BlankPoint as a business to run. So what's genuinely hard? Like, what are the things that eats your time, or maybe, gives you sleepless night because you're thinking of BlankPoint 3 years from now, 5 years from now.
There are, when you look at being a provider, right? One of the things that you look at as far as acquiring customers is the pain points. And so the pain points usually it's the typical quality of service, drop calls, things
Yeah.
of that nature.
Mhm.
But where do they come from? Those are the
Mhm.
things that come from of unknowing. The
Mhm.
people in place, they're not aware of how things to work, need to work,
Mhm.
and the biggest, I guess, the gap, one of the pain points is the information. I mean, we are to be in an age of information. Unfortunately, the information is not being passed correctly, accurately. Either half the truth, either don't know the truth, or you have something and you just don't have any direction about it, right?
Mhm.
And so there's a percentage of the truth about how UCaaS VoIP works and
Mhm.
just in totality, right?
Mhm.
You work with a business. It's not like they're going, most from what I understand of what I experience, they
Mhm.
don't offer the extensive knowledge of something. They cut it at some point. Either you have
Mhm.
to pay for the knowledge or, they just don't want to help you from what they know of. The people that needs help are not getting the help that's needed. And so, I think at this point now, one of the biggest pain points is the information of knowing what you need in order to resolve the issues that you have, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's drop calls, whether it's, poor quality QoS, the quality of
Mhm.
service,
Mhm.
um, these things really play a role into being a pain point, because if you talk to 10 different business owners, you're going to get 10 different things. What would be the
Right.
average issue? And because
Okay.
everybody looks at things differently, it's perspective at this point. It's
Yeah.
subjective. But what in totality is the issue? It's to from my where I stand at, it's the knowledge. I a lot of people don't have it, especially voice over IP. It has changed so much. The knowledge has changed. You talk to someone who's a CCNP from 2010
Mm-hmm.
to someone who's a CCNP now,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's two totally different worlds. The
Yeah.
information that they learn is two totally. So those two engineers work with two different, businesses. They're going to teach them something different that can either stray them away, or just lead them half the way and they
Mm-hmm.
kind of still lost. So, again, I would say it's the information that's the biggest pain point right now and today with businesses, providers, and the relationship in business.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think you're going to address it with BlankPoint?
Well, that goes into play with our white glove service, our commitment to be hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
We're here. It's not that I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to tell you what you need because it's going to stray you away and we're not going to get the business. That's not what it's about. It's we're going to give you that commitment to let you know
Mm-hmm.
that even it's not with us, we're
Yeah.
going to inform you. So when you do go on, you now equipped. And that's the
Yeah.
point, is
Yeah.
to be, help the next and let it continually connect all of us together. So
Yeah.
yeah, that commitment is what's definitely going to stay. As I mentioned earlier, everything trickles from the top to the bottom. And so the way that my vision, the
Mm-hmm.
mission, and
Mm-hmm.
just the aura, that's going to pass on to the rest of the employees with BlankPoint.
Mm-hmm.
And that then can lead me up to where I can free up a lot of time and work on other things in business development or research and, development,
Yeah.
things like that. I've seen that a lot of companies, they want someone to wear multiple hats.
Yeah.
They want a
Exactly.
generalist. Now so the question is, do you want a generalist in your position,
Mm.
or do you want a specialist?
Yes.
Which one, and so it's a con and pro. If the
Yeah.
specialist is out, who else can do what they do compared to a generalist? So again, balance is key. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
teaching that, having each person learn that they can. Now I let them
Mm.
know. Now I can work on this. If I have tickets or whatever may be
Mm-hmm.
the case, I can work on that. And just allocating your time correctly in order to
Right.
be efficient with your time. And so
Yeah.
and that's the biggest thing, because that's even happens to business owners. They burn out and they can't allocate their time, and so when they can't scale out. So
Yeah.
um, that's definitely going to be, that's a training
Mm-hmm.
position. Now, I would say this though. So there has to be boundary on most things. I would say a discipline on things. So, for example, what I mean is that who we hire, they have to fit
Yeah.
specifically for that, right? They represent that what BlankPoint stands for.
Yeah.
And then that's
Mm-hmm.
probably cliche. A lot of people say, well, I want to hire somebody who really want to help in this way. I can do this,
Mm.
right? Because even the boundary for us is that just not everybody's going to be our customer,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
It's either you're going to tear us down or you're going to build us up the same way we view you as a customer. But I'm saying the concept of it is the fact of, all customers are not just going to be out for you. So being mindful on who we choose as a client or a customer is the
Mhm.
same equivalence to who we choose to represent BlankPoint. And, they represent BlankPoint when they're working with the ones that are considered family, customers.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, having the right kind of people in your team with the right kind of mindset, that's very, very important in growing an organization and continuing the culture what you've already built in BlankPoint. I think that's something very important. And I feel at this stage, I can clearly say that BlankPoint is actually like built on a white glove service model. Um, so of course, I have like one question. what's your vision for BlankPoint? Like, where do you want BlankPoint to be in 3 years? I don't want the safe, polished answer. I want something really, really ambitious from your end, because I know you're a very good thinker, a very strategic thinker, and a great person with, who thinks about customer first, which is very refreshing, I would say.
Where I envision BlankPoint being in 3 years and just in the space of where we stand, domain that we stand in, is to be a need for every business and everything they need. Like when a business thinks about all the aspects of a business, when somebody's opening a business up, they think about the things that they need. Everything and anything that comes in and touches the light of communications and telecommunications, the first business they think of is BlankPoint, a household name to where they need it because of what we provide. Even if it's not for the service, the fact that they can call, acquire, maybe about services, they walk out with more than what they came in with. Again, the commitment of that is that our resources, we share what we know. It's not gatekeeping to the fact of anything based on services. It's just because we truly want to provide. There may be a pizza parlor, but they walk out saying, you know what, I know what I need. And so they speak to their IT guy, now they're equipped with the information they need in order to say, hey, don't just put a Netgear switch in there, put something that we can do VLAN, separate the data and the voice, things like that, or whatever may be the case for their scenario, that they have the information and the services that really help them, their business, to really just grow, scale, or just run the way it needs to be in life, period. And so in 3 years, I really envision BlankPoint being a innovator, and just a business to where any business will rely on, like really lean on and say, we need them because, they really help us, not just based on services, but everything else that they do offer. It's a relationship thing. So again, I'd say that I really see us in a place where there's not going to be a conversation being held without the mention of BlankPoint because of what we give. We are, right now we're in the process of rolling out this new connection with our customers, right? There's a portal to where they can stay in tuned, whether it's an email, but the portal is for them to be inclined on things where they don't have to just log in. The information is given to them based on what they need. And it's based on that because their dedicated resource, their account manager, or even their dedicated engineer, they know what's going on with their client. They know what's going on. And so they're able to feed them what's needed. I've talked to John, other day for the past couple of weeks, and he's been inquiring about, he's been inquiring about just drop call specifically. Right. And so this right here, I've been sending you is to give you insight on how to avoid any kind of drop calls, right? Things like that. It's staying in tune with those that create that connection and staying in tune with it, right? And so it's not just a knowledge base, but it's a proactive knowledge base that they can actually gain something from. And so that kind of is what we're working on now, and how to stay in tune with the customer to give them something without them asking, right? That's going to be the biggest thing.
It was great talking to you, Chico. One last thing, where can people find you and BlankPoint if this resonated with them? And they want to talk to you, where can they find you?
You can find us, you can reach us at our direct website, which is blankpoint.co. You can find us on all social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're all there. So BlankPoint Communications, and or you can reach us directly at sales@blankpoint.cl. And we're here to help in any kind of way. So wherever you at, we'll reach you as far as social media or on the website.
Perfect. Thank you, Chico, for this genuinely great hour. I think I'm sure there are millions of other businesses really looking for such kind of providers. And I think this has been a great hour. Thank you so much for your
Thank you so much. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity and the time. And definitely many blessings on everything that you're doing. This is great what you're doing. So blessings to you.
Thank you so much.